All right, ready to level up your thinking.
I think we've got just the thing for you.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Let's talk about falsifiability.
Falsifiability. Okay, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a bit of a tongue twister, but stick with me.
All right, I'm all ears. What's so special about this falsifiability thing?
Well, think of it like a superpower, especially if you're all about self-improvement.
Oh, now you've got my attention.
Mhm.
Superpowers and self-improvement, that's my jam.
It's like having this built-in BS detector for any idea you come across. Helps you sort the good stuff from the not so good stuff.
I like where this is going. So how does this BS detector work?
We've got some excerpts from the Wikipedia article on falsifiability.
Oh, Wikipedia, the ultimate source of knowledge. But fair warning, those articles can get pretty dense.
No worries, we'll break it down. It all starts with this philosopher of science, Karl Popper.
Karl Popper, all right, what's his deal?
He was basically trying to figure out what makes something truly scientific, not just someone's opinion or wishful thinking.
So, like, what separates hard facts from fluffy ideas?
Exactly. And he came up with this idea that for something to be truly scientific, it needs to be testable.
Testable. Makes sense. You got to be able to put it to the test.
But here's the kicker. It can't just be testable in a way that confirms it. It needs to be testable in a way that could actually prove it wrong.
Oh, so you're not just looking for evidence that supports it. You're looking for evidence that could shoot it down.
That's the heart of it. He called this falsifiability.
So if an idea can't be falsified, if there's no way to prove it wrong, then it's probably not that strong of an idea.
You got it. It might sound counterintuitive, but it's incredibly powerful, especially in the self-improvement world.
I'm starting to see that. There's so much advice out there, so many different theories. How do I know what to trust?
Falsifiability gives you a framework for figuring that out. It's like before you buy into an idea, you ask yourself,
What would it take to prove this wrong?
exactly. If you can't even imagine what kind of evidence would disprove a claim, it's probably not a very solid claim to begin with.
So it's about approaching things with a healthy dose of skepticism, not just taking things at face value.
Exactly. And that can be a game changer when it comes to making better decisions, especially in your personal life.
All right, I'm starting to get the theory, but could you give me a real-life example? How does this work in practice?
Sure. Let's say you come across a self-help book that promises to eliminate all stress from your life. Just follow their method and bam, no more stress.
Okay, honestly, that sounds pretty tempting. Who wouldn't want a stress-free life?
Right. But before you buy into that promise, put on your falsifiability hat.
Right, my falsifiability hat is on. What am I looking for?
Ask yourself, what would it take to prove this claim wrong?
So if I try their method and I'm still stressed, does that mean the method doesn't work?
That's one way to look at it. Or maybe you ask, is there any way to measure my stress levels to see if they've actually gone down?
I see. So if the author just says, well, you must not have been doing it right, that's kind of a red flag, because there's no way to disprove that.
Bingo, you nailed it. A falsifiable claim would be something like, this method will reduce your stress levels by at least 20%, as measured by this specific test.
Oh, so you're looking for specific, measurable outcomes that you can actually track.
That's what makes it testable and, more importantly, falsifiable.
This is making me realize how often we accept things without really questioning them. We just kind of go along with what sounds good or what we want to believe.
It's a common trap, but falsifiability gives you a tool to break free from that.
So it's like a mental shield against bogus claims and wishful thinking. But what about beliefs that are less clear-cut, like being kind to others makes you a better person? How do you even test that?
That's a great question, and it highlights how we can apply this concept to all areas of life, not just hard science.
So it's not always about conducting a literal experiment. It's more about having that critical thinking mindset.
Precisely. It's about asking, what are the potential weaknesses in this idea? What evidence might challenge this belief?
So for the kindness example, you might ask, well, what does better even mean? And are there situations where being kind could backfire?
You got it. By asking those kinds of questions, you're engaging in the spirit of falsifiability. You're forcing yourself to think more critically and to avoid just blindly accepting things because they sound nice or feel good.
I'm loving this. It's like a mental workout for my beliefs. Now, the Wikipedia article also mentioned something called basic statements. What are those all about?
Ah, yes, basic statements. Think of them as the building blocks of evidence.
Okay, so they're like the raw data that you use to test a theory.
Exactly. They're simple, observable facts that you can point to.
So in the stress reduction example, a basic statement might be, I measured my stress levels before and after trying the method, and they didn't budge.
Perfect example. It's grounded in a specific observation, and it directly relates to the claim being made.
This is making me realize how much we rely on assumptions and vague ideas. We don't always take the time to look at the actual evidence.
And that's where falsifiability can be such a powerful tool. It encourages us to look for those basic statements, those concrete pieces of evidence.
So it's about upgrading from casual opinions to a more solid, evidence-based way of thinking.
I like how you put that. It's like building your knowledge on a stronger foundation.
I'm all about upgrading my foundation. But I have to admit, the Wikipedia article was a bit heavy. They talked about the logic of science versus the actual methodology of science, and I kind of got lost there.
Yeah, that can get a bit abstract. Let me try to put it simply.
Please do.
Think of the logic of science as the ideal way science should work in theory.
Okay, so like a perfect blueprint for scientific thinking.
Exactly. But then there's the methodology of science, which is how science actually happens in the real world.
And I'm guessing it's not always as neat and tidy as the theory.
Right. In the real world, things can get messy. There are always limitations to what we can observe. Our instruments aren't perfect, and sometimes we even make mistakes.
So it's like the difference between having a perfect recipe and actually trying to bake a cake in your kitchen. There are always unexpected variables.
That's a great analogy, and Popper himself acknowledged this. He knew that even if a theory is falsifiable in principle, it might be tough to disprove it in practice.
But the key is that the possibility of being wrong is always there. That's what keeps us honest, keeps us pushing for better evidence.
Absolutely. And ultimately, that's what leads to more reliable knowledge.
This is giving me a whole new way of looking at information. It's not just about finding stuff that confirms what I already believe. It's about actively seeking out evidence that could challenge my beliefs.
Now you're getting it. That's the spirit of falsifiability in action. And here's the exciting part. You can apply this to pretty much any area of life, not just science.
Okay, you've officially piqued my curiosity. How can we use this to level up our self-improvement game?
That's exactly what we'll dive into next. Get ready to apply this superpower to your personal growth journey. So we've talked about how scientists use this whole falsifiability thing.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat concept.
But you might be thinking, okay, that's great for science, but what's in it for me? How does this help me on my self-improvement journey?
You read my mind. How do I actually use this to, level up my life?
It all starts with getting a little curious, a little skeptical even, about the things you believe in.
So not just blindly accepting everything I read in self-help books or hear from motivational speakers.
Exactly. You got to put those beliefs to the test. Ask yourself.
What would it take to prove this wrong?
You got it. Or even, what if this isn't entirely true?
Because let's be real, there's a ton of self-improvement advice out there that sounds good but doesn't always deliver.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where falsifiability comes in. It helps you filter out the fluff and focus on what actually works.
Okay, I'm liking this. So give me an example. How would I use this in a real-life situation?
Let's say you're struggling with procrastination.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one for me.
A lot of people think procrastination is all about laziness or lack of willpower.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that way about myself. It's like, come on, just get it done.
But what if we put on our falsifiability glasses and take a closer look at that belief?
All right, my falsifiability glasses are on. What am I looking for?
Ask yourself, are there any situations where people procrastinate even if they're not lazy?
Interesting question. Well, think about students who cram all night before a deadline. They're definitely not lazy, but they're still procrastinating.
Exactly. Or what about when you put off something you're actually excited about, like planning a vacation or starting a new hobby? It's not laziness, it's something else.
That's so true. I've totally done that before. I get all excited about a project, but then I keep putting it off.
Which suggests there might be other factors at play, right? Maybe fear of failure, perfectionism, or just feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, those all sound familiar.
By using falsifiability, you start to see beyond those surface-level explanations and get to the root of the problem.
It's like I've been wearing these procrastination equals laziness glasses for so long, I didn't even realize they were distorting my view.
And once you take those glasses off, you can start exploring different solutions. Instead of beating yourself up for being lazy, you can try techniques for managing anxiety or breaking down those big tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks.
This is making me realize that falsifiability isn't just about debunking things. It's about opening up to new possibilities.
Exactly. It's about becoming more flexible in your thinking and less attached to beliefs that might be holding you back.
I love that. So it's not about finding the right answer. And sticking to it forever.
Nope, it's more about being open to new information and constantly refining your understanding.
Now, earlier we talked about how sometimes even unfalsifiable statements can be useful in science.
Hmm.
Does that apply to self-improvement too? It seems like with personal growth, you really want to focus on stuff that you can actually test.
You're right, but there's a bit of a twist here. Sometimes the most powerful beliefs in self-improvement are about values or guiding principles.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of beliefs are we talking about?
Think about the statement, it's important to treat others with respect, even when they disagree with you. You can't really do an experiment to prove or disprove that.
Yeah, that's more about a moral code or a way of interacting with the world.
Right. But even though it's not strictly falsifiable, it can still be incredibly useful.
It's like a compass that helps you navigate life's tricky situations.
That's a great way to put it. And while you can't directly test these types of beliefs, they can often be supported or challenged by other beliefs that are falsifiable.
So it's like a network of ideas, all interconnected, where even the unfalsifiable ones can be influenced by evidence.
Exactly. The more you practice this kind of thinking, the better you'll become at figuring out which beliefs are worth holding on to and which ones might need a little tweaking.
So it's not about becoming a cynic and rejecting everything you can't scientifically prove.
Not at all. It's about developing a more nuanced and sophisticated way of evaluating information and beliefs.
This is really making me think differently about self-improvement. It's not just about following every piece of advice out there. It's about being more discerning, more critical in my thinking.
That's the key. True self-improvement isn't about blindly accepting things. It's about being an active participant in your own growth. Always questioning, always experimenting, and refining your understanding of what works best for you.
I love that. It's about becoming more self-aware and ultimately more effective at reaching my goals.
Absolutely. And here's another important point. Applying falsifiability in your life isn't about achieving absolute certainty.
Oh, so it's not about finding the one right answer and then clinging to it forever.
Nope. It's more about embracing uncertainty, being willing to change your mind, and continuously updating your beliefs as you learn and grow.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like having a growth mindset, always seeking new information and being open to different perspectives.
You got it. And that's essential for anyone who's serious about self-improvement. It lets you adapt and evolve in ways you couldn't if you were stuck with rigid beliefs.
I'm starting to see how powerful this concept can be. It's like a secret weapon for anyone who wants to break free from those limiting beliefs and reach their full potential. But honestly, it's a lot to take in. Any advice on how to actually start using this in my everyday life?
I'm glad you asked. We'll explore some practical tips and strategies in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. This is getting really interesting. All right, we've covered a lot of ground with this falsifiability thing.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep concept.
But how do we actually put it into practice?
Yeah.
Like in our daily lives, especially when it comes to self-improvement.
Well, it's all about cultivating that mindset.
Mindset. Okay, what kind of mindset?
A mindset of curiosity and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Skepticism. So like not just believing everything I hear.
Exactly. Even if it sounds really appealing. Or, especially if it's something you've believed for a long time, those deep-seated beliefs.
Right, those can be tough to shake. So how do we start questioning those beliefs?
One practical way is to think in terms of if-then statements, like a little experiment.
If-then statements. Okay, give me an example.
Let's say you believe that waking up early makes you more productive.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one a lot.
To test that belief, you could frame it as an if-then statement. If I wake up at 5 a.m. every day for a week, then I will complete more tasks than I normally do.
So you're setting up a little challenge for yourself.
Exactly. You're putting that belief to the test. And the key is to be honest with yourself about the results.
So if I try waking up early for a week and I'm not any more productive, then maybe that belief needs some adjusting.
Right. Maybe it's not true for you, or maybe there are other factors involved. But at least you're gathering some real-world evidence.
That makes sense. But a lot of self-improvement stuff is about mindset, right? Like positive thinking or visualization. How does falsifiability apply to those kinds of beliefs?
Those can be a bit trickier to test, but you can still use a similar approach.
Okay, so walk me through it.
Say you believe that visualizing yourself achieving your goals will increase your chances of success.
Yeah, that's a popular one. But how do we make that falsifiable?
You could try a little experiment. Focus on visualizing a specific goal for a set period of time, and then track your progress.
So like really pay attention to whether my visualization is actually leading to any real results.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it actually helping you move towards your goal, or is it just making you feel good in the moment?
So it's not just about how it feels, it's about the tangible outcomes.
Exactly. And that's where those basic statements come back into play.
Oh, right, those observable facts.
What are the specific things you can point to that either support or challenge your belief?
This whole conversation is making me rethink my approach to self-improvement.
In what way?
I'm realizing it's not about blindly following every bit of advice or clinging to beliefs just because they make me feel good.
That's a huge insight.
It's about being more critical, more discerning.
It's about being an active participant in your own growth.
Yes, not just passively absorbing information.
Always questioning, always experimenting, and refining your understanding of what actually works for you.
I'm really starting to see how powerful this concept can be.
It's a game changer.
It's like a secret weapon for self-improvement.
Well, maybe not so secret anymore.
True. So any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are ready to embrace this falsifiability superpower?
Embrace the possibility of being wrong.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Don't be afraid to challenge your beliefs. It's not a failure. It's an opportunity to learn and grow. The more you practice this, the stronger your critical thinking skills become. And the better equipped you'll be to navigate the world of self-improvement and life in general.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We started with this kind of complex scientific concept.
Falsifiability.
Yes, but it's actually a really practical tool.
For anyone who's serious about personal growth.
It's about asking those tough questions, testing our assumptions, and being open to new perspectives. It might just change your life. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.